The email's sterile pronouncements, streamlining operations, synergistic realignment, evolving market dynamics, swam before Amelia's eyes, each phrase a polished shard of glass, twisting in the wound of her sudden dismissal. The rain outside intensified, each fat drop slamming against the attic window like an accusatory finger pointing at her perceived failure. 7 years. The number echoed in the cramped space, a stark, unforgiving tally of her dedication, her sacrifices, the sheer, unwavering effort she had poured into Omnicorp. It wasn't just a job. It was the scaffolding of her life. The meticulous spreadsheets that had once been abstract data points now morphed into the stark columns of her mortgage, the fluctuating figures of her mother's escalating medical bills, the daunting, ever-increasing, some required for her niece's college fund, a promise Amelia had made with a youthful, confident heart. Now those numbers seemed to mock her, looming like insurmountable debts. The anger, initially a scalding rush, began to morph into a more insidious, corrosive resentment. It festered in the quiet corners of her mind, replaying conversations, dissecting perceived slights from years past, painting her former colleagues and superiors as callous architects of her downfall. Sleep offered no escape. Her nights were haunted by fragmented dreams of boardrooms dissolving into stormy seas, of faceless figures pointing and whispering accusations. Anxiety, a constant companion, manifested physically. Her shoulders were perpetually hunched, her jaw tight. Her appetite vanished, replaced by a persistent knot of nausea. The vibrant hues of the world seemed to have leached away, leaving behind a muted gray landscape. Even the familiar comfort of her attic, usually a haven filled with the comforting aroma of aged paper and the silent wisdom of forgotten objects, now felt oppressive, the low ceiling pressing down on her like the weight of her uncertain future. She found herself obsessively checking her email, a futile ritual fueled by a desperate sliver of hope for a retraction, an apology, something to negate the brutal finality of that initial message. Each refresh brought only the stark emptiness of her inbox, a digital void mirroring the growing emptiness within her. The silence of the house, usually a source of peace, now amplified her isolation. Her partner, Daniel, was away on a crucial business trip, a cruel twist of fate that left her to navigate this personal earthquake alone. She longed for his steady presence, his calm reassurances, but the time difference and his demanding schedule created an unbridgeable chasm. Her brief, stilted phone calls with him felt inadequate, the weight of her despair too heavy to convey through crackling phone lines. One particularly bleak afternoon, while aimlessly sorting through a box of old photographs, she stumbled upon a picture of her younger self beaming with unbridled optimism on her graduation day. A pang of sharp regret pierced through the layers of her current misery. Where had that bright-eyed confidence gone? Had she allowed Omnicorp to consume her, to define her worth so completely that its rejection had shattered her sense of self? She remembered her grandfather's words, often repeated during her childhood. A tree that bends with the wind survives the storm. Had she been too rigid, too unyielding in her dedication to a single path? Had she failed to cultivate other aspects of her life, other sources of strength and identity? The weight of these questions pressed down on her, heavier than the thickest of the antique tomes surrounding her. She felt a profound sense of disorientation, as if the compass of her life had suddenly spun wildly, leaving her adrift in a sea of uncertainty. Driven by a restless energy, she began to explore the attic, more deliberately, as if seeking answers within its dusty confines. She ran her fingers over the spines of forgotten books, the titles, philosophy, poetry, history, whispering promises of different perspectives, of lives lived through other trials. It was then that she rediscovered her grandfather's journal, tucked away beneath a stack of yellowed maps. The worn leather felt familiar in her hands, a tangible link to a man whose quiet resilience she had always admired. Opening it felt like stepping into a different time, a space where wisdom was distilled through experience and reflection. As she turned the fragile pages, her eyes fell upon more of his elegant script, interspersed with quotes from thinkers long past. One entry, dated decades ago, resonated with a chilling familiarity. The world inflicts its wounds. It is our choice whether we allow them to fester and poison our spirit, or whether we seek the balm of understanding and the strength of our own inner resources. His words were a gentle but firm challenge to her current state of being. She recognized the festering wound of her anger, the slow poisoning of her spirit by resentment and anxiety. But the entry also offered a glimmer of hope, a suggestion that she possessed the inner resources to heal, to find her own balm. She continued to read, drawn deeper into her grandfather's reflections on loss, on change, on the enduring power of human resilience. He wrote of setbacks not as definitive endings, but as unexpected detours, opportunities for growth and reevaluation. He quoted Seneca, "Every new beginning comes from some other beginning's end." The words, penned so long ago, seemed to speak directly to her present crisis. The end of her chapter at Omnicorp, however painful, could potentially be the beginning of something new, something perhaps even more aligned with her true values and aspirations. But the path forward remained shrouded in mist, and the fear of the unknown still held her in its grip. The rain outside finally began to subside, the heavy drumming softening to a gentle patter. A fragile sliver of sunlight pierced through the grimy window pane, illuminating the dust motes dancing in the air. For the first time since receiving that devastating email, Amelia felt a tiny shift within her, a flicker of something other than anger and despair. It wasn't hope, not yet, but perhaps a nascent curiosity, a willingness to consider that this ending might not be the final word. The tension in her shoulders eased infinitesimally, the knot in her stomach loosened ever so slightly. The journey through the storm was far from over, but perhaps, just perhaps, she had found a handhold, a whisper of guidance in the quiet wisdom of the past.